Welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast. Becoming the dad God has called you to be takes a deeper dive. Dads too often stay at surface level. So let's dive deep into today's podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dad Deep Dive Podcast. Today's special guest is Ulises Larramendi. We are going to talk today with Ulises about testosterone in the house. Now that may seem like a strange subject to you or a strange title, but Ulises and his wife Maria were blessed to raise 3 boys during their time in child raising years. And he's going to share with us his experience of raising those 3 boys and what it looked like. And really, what role does mom play in raising of 3 testosterone supercharged boys? We're so glad that you joined us here on the Deep Dive Podcast, and let's get right to it.
So Ulises, man, this is awesome. I am so honored that you are here because I know that you are one of the busiest men I know. And in the middle of the day on a Friday, I take you away from your restaurant and your business you're hands on because every time I've been there, you're not just walking around. You're in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So thank you for not only being a part of this Dad U Online, presentation, but thank you for being a part of Dad University really from the onset, because you've participated several times when we did pre-COVID live men's Dad U's. So thank you.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
Having all those guys in one room, just sharing the same pains and the same experiences and the same doubts and the same tears. That was good. I hope someday we go back to that.
Yeah. Well, what we're trying to do here is create the same situation where it's at the leisure of a man who subscribes, who can click on to Dad University. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be one of 9 of our presentations for the fall. So Dad Online University Fall. So men can subscribe, and so I'm just excited thinking about the men and the families that will be affected by the conversations that we have, even right now today. We talk about Dad University, one man, one change, one generation. So the things that we talk about today, in your title, testosterone in the house, which I want to get to, but it's so important because raising, you are the professional in the room when it comes to raising boys because you've had lots of practice, and we're going to get to that. But so I want them to know a little bit about you. I mean, you're Cuban born, American citizen.
Yep.
I mean, so just talk a little bit about that.
I was born in Cuba. We left when I was 11. My parents, my dad was in the sugar industry, and he had some political issues with the new regime. So I won't take too long to explain the whole story, but we had to leave the island. My dad was not in a position where he could stay and possibly be alive much longer. That's another video.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2 of. So we left a communist country to seeking freedom. My mom and dad decided that in order for them to have a life and also provide me with a future, they had to leave everything behind. So we left. The only way at that time was to go to Madrid. So we flew to Spain. I was lucky that we didn't have to get on a raft like the thousands that have left Cuba in the last couple of decades, and most of them have died on the way, drowned, but nobody knows how many. Because they leave without telling anyone. You can't trust anybody in those systems. So they hit the water. They may or may not make it to Key West. Some end up in Bahamas. Some end up in Haiti. It's just you're in a raft. Mm-hmm. So we were lucky that we could still get on a plane and go to Spain and live there for a few years, 3 years in fact, until my dad got the paperwork and the residence to come here. And actually we got approved to be Canadian citizens and U.S. citizens at the same time. This was in 1976. And my mom said, I'm not going to Canada. It's too cold up there. But my dad's a mechanical engineer, so the jobs here in the 70s were plenty. The oil industry was booming, so we came to Houston. He had colleagues here that went to school with him in Cuba that already had jobs. And he could line up and get a job immediately, which he did. And the rest is history. You know, we set our roots here in Houston. And I've left on career moves, but Houston's always been my home. Texas, you know, I'm one of those few Cubans that did not go to Miami and you know, or Jersey or where the Cuban communities are. The one in Houston is pretty dense, but nothing compared to Florida or you know or Jersey, Elizabeth, some of those towns where the Cubans are, they're everywhere.
Well, praise God that your dad had the education, and that to be able to do that, you know, and what a story, and how grateful I know you are that you had parents that saw that, you know, and was able to have a plan for you. And, you know, that's a lot about what we're talking about with Dad University. You know, being a parent, being the dad, having a plan, you know, taking care of your family, finding a way for your family, you know. So
that decision that my dad made obviously impacted me directly. But if you think about all the generations that are going to come past me, my 3 sons, their kids, their families, you can't calculate what that day when they both have said we are leaving, what that decision meant in the long run.
One man, one change.
There you go. Yeah.
Many generations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
And of course, your mom there too. I mean, side by side, right?
Yeah.
And
we'll start a Mom U someday.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yes. Give tribute to moms. So you talk about some of your passions. I mean, I know that I know that you've been involved in some film and theater and things like that. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I make my living. My bread and butter is hospitality and the restaurant business, as you know. You've been a patron for many years.
Yeah.
So, serving, cooking, that's, you know, and it's in my DNA. A lot of my uncles and family members were either in restaurants or hotels in Cuba. So even though I started at U of H as an engineering student,
Cook's House,
as an engineering student, following my dad's footsteps, I realized very quickly after a few physics courses and thermodynamics that wasn't for me. So I went into hospitality with a really big family here in Houston, the Pappas family, and the rest is history. I learned it there, and I got the bug, and I never got out.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I worked for Harris Pappas and Chris for many years. I worked for Johnny Carrabba's and Damien for many years, and I ended up with the Palm before I said, I want to do this on my own, because I had learned enough, I thought. I'm still learning, man.
Every day.
Been in this industry almost 40 years, and I'm still learning. But, you know, my passion is hospitality, but my other passion that God, I think, has opened doors for me to be involved with is performing, it's film, it's acting, and I've really been blessed to be able to do that, but also in a way that has impacted lives. Okay, because one thing is being in a production, another thing is being in a production that's going to change lives and save people. And working with a ministry here locally, which you know very well, Reflective Life, that changed a lot. I mean, you know, the last project that we did with veterans and PTSD, the movie called We Are Stronger, that's still, you know, changing lives, man. You know, saving people from suicide, just changing their path, their marriages. It's been an amazing experience. You know, and I've done some other work in commercials and things like that, fun stuff. Right. You know, but and I've done a lot of theater, which I think is what helped me get into film. I would never advise young students to go from film to theater, but I would always say, if you're in theater, you're more than ready to go into film. Because you're more prepared, you study more, you know, you get more into your character when you come from that. At least that's my experience.
Yeah.
But that's been fun too.
Yeah.
And I don't do it now as much.
Yeah.
COVID has forced me to pay 1,000% attention to my restaurant and make sure it survived. But I hope to get back to it, soon.
Well, that when you talk about the impact of a film that people can see, for years to come, it's there, it's available, it's accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll never know how many lives as well in that arena that by an audience that watches things like that will be affected for the future.
Jeff,
we
came up with the term media missionaries because I've been on mission trips, but it's such a sad moment when you leave this young people that you just share the gospel with, and you cried and you hugged and you gave them a Bible, and then we'll see you in a year.
Right.
And where do they go from there? How do they grow, But and then the expense of having to go to all these places and spend just a week with them.
Yeah.
But a film, the first film that we did with Reflective Life, First Love, it was called. It's been shown in Egypt. Someone took it out there and showed it with subtitles, and you know what I mean? And so it has the potential to go so much further, and like you said, for so much longer, and continue to impact lives even.
It lives.
Yeah.
It lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, today's title is Testosterone in the House. So why, why today's title? Tell me why. I know that we've talked about this before, and obviously I know that you have 3 sons, but
well, when you asked me to get involved with Dad U, I thought, well, what can I contribute as a dad? Well, the one thing that came out first was, well, I've raised 3 boys, and between my testosterone and their testosterone, Maria has had a handful this last 22 years. So I thought it would, be fitting that, because it's been nothing but testosterone in that house, man. It's been brutal, right? And nothing prepared us for that. God wired us in a certain way because He knew, right, all along what was going to happen to us, how many kids we were going to have, how many miscarriages. One of them was going to be twins. He knew, right? So He wired us and put us together and connected us so that we could have these 3 boys, but we weren't prepared at all to raise 3 boys, And even to this day, I can say that I can speak of my experiences, but I'm not an expert, man. It's been a learn as you go, a lot of mistakes. But that's the thing. And I was thinking about it on the way here. I was thinking, God never puts you in a situation where you can pat yourself on the back. It's always, you do this, and I'll equip you. I'll prepare you. But God, just do it. I'll take care of everything else. And that's what He did with us raising boys. When I found out we were having twins.
Yeah, they had them first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When I found out we were having twins, which we have no twins in our family, I was like, right? And then 15 months later, Joshua came, so we had triplets basically for the first 5 years of their lives, and it's a fog for me. I don't remember a lot of it. I do, but I like to say that I don't remember because, man, we were in a daze most of the time, just trying to keep up with diapers and feeding, and it's 3 on 2.
Yeah.
You know about basketball, right?
Yeah.
We were outmanned from the get-go.
Somebody's always
open. Man, and they figure that out so quickly, So it's the testosterone has always been high, and I'm blessed to have boys that are strong and are strong-willed, and they're just they fought to establish their presence, and I respected that from the beginning, and they knew that. I enjoy them now because we are all men and we can sit down and talk about real deep things. Maria enjoyed the baby stage. I think that happens in most parents, right? The mom likes the goo-goo, the baby stages. Dad, not so much, cleaning all those diapers, changing. But I still look forward all those years to the time where they would become old enough for me to cheer them from the stand, or, wait for them when they got out of the game and hug them and say, "Great game, son," or, "Hey, it's okay, it's just one game, let's move on," or whatever.
Yeah.
Because of my background, I got them into athletics immediately. Yeah. My parents would have rather that they learned music or learned to play the piano, or my mom is a piano concerto type person that did a lot of classical stuff in her age. So she always volunteered to teach him music, and none of them wanted anything to do with it, just like I didn't.
Yeah.
And I regret that to this day. Because how cool would it be if I could play the piano now? But
I know. I always think I would love to. That's kind of on that. It's still on, I guess, maybe on that to-do list or bucket list, even this late, to learn how to play the guitar, play the piano, even not to be an expert, but just to be able to get behind the piano and just,
sure.
But you said something, I think, really, you've said a lot of things very, important. But I want to go back to the part where you said about, the part that as young dads, we don't particularly, like changing diapers and all those all those things. Mm-hmm. But it's important that we do it.
Yeah.
That we're there. Even there's a lot of things in life we don't like to do, but it's critical. And I think so many men don't like it and don't do it. You don't have to like it.
There are parents who are together that one of them is a single parent, even though you don't have to be separated or divorced to be a single mom or dad. If one of them is not present, you might as well be raising your kids by yourself. So I didn't like changing diapers, but I liked, to this day, and they tell me sometimes because they remember. They remember trips. They remember things I said. They remember things I did. They are watching, even at an early age, in those formative years, they are watching every step, particularly of their dad. Mom's the one they go to be nurtured. Dad's the one they go to learn from. If they're boys, they're looking at the male figure. Okay, I need to be like that guy because he has the same anatomy that I do, and that I understood from the beginning. So, being present is huge even early. I just know that I didn't like changing diapers. You should see some of the videos that Maria took of me changing. It was pretty bad.
Well, I think you would be in the majority, of fathers.
I love feeding them and falling asleep while the bottle fell out of my arm. But
But you were a contributor. You were a participant in the.
I wanted to.
And
I wanted to.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. I was just watching a movie the other day, and the daughter was drawing a picture. The stick pictures of their family, and there was the mom and the two children, and then there was an airplane, and the mom said, "Where's Dad?" And the little girl who tells the truth, they tell the truth, says, "Dad's in the plane. That's where he always is." Right. So I go, ouch. I think that's a real struggle that men have, because they do have to make a living, and they do, and some do travel and so forth. So how do I run a business and put food on the table, literally, not just at the restaurant but at home, but also be a contributor, as a dad. I think that's a struggle that men have. Well, I do all I can. I can't be two places at once. And so what do I do? I think what happens is when we're present, when we have the opportunities, we don't maximize it. Even if, it's not quantity sometimes. It's just the quality. And I mean, my kids' early age is, I was a coach, so sometimes the only time I saw them was when they were asleep in bed already. But when I could, I was the one to put them to bed at night, and
or get them up in the morning.
So you just have to be. You got to find a way, right?
Yeah.
So
even if, for example, for us, there was a period there where I was flying. I was a director of operations for the Palm, and all my stores were in the West Coast, and Nevada and Denver, the Denver Palm, the Vegas Palm, all the palms in California, and I had to fly west Monday and come home Friday. And they were 5, 6 years old at this time. But when I got home on Friday at noon, I put everything away, and Maria knew she owned me for the weekend, until Monday at noon when I left again. So every week consistently, the family was together. And that's how I made the balance work, because they always had me, even though I was on that plane Monday to Friday. But when I was home, and they had me. And I think the boys, I know that they have great memories of those weekends, regardless of whether I was on that plane that little girl was drawing.
Yeah.
Because you can,
Yeah.
if you're in, what are they, what's the word? You're intentional about spending time with your kids. You can, and you must, as we'll talk about later. But
So I always like to ask this question of dads that have multiple of one gender. How do you? Because I had one boy and one girl, and so I would tell my daughter that she was daddy's precious little girl, and I would tell my son the very same thing. He was daddy's precious boy. He was my only boy, and I only girl. So I always wondered what would have been like if I had had a second girl or a second boy. So you have 3, and you had twins first. They're all different. But how do you let each one of them know that they're valuable to you, that they're complete, that you
they're
love
loved?
them? Yes.
They're VCL.
How do you know? How do they know? Because they're all 3 different.
Well, for them to know that they're valued, complete, and loved, they had a great principal at the high school.
Well, that's not why. I want to know, how does a dad? How do you divide your time? How do you make each one of them individually feel like they're just as special as the other?
That's a great question. We didn't raise our boys to, like the twins, to be the same and dress the same and be in the same class. In fact, we encouraged them to have different friends, dress differently, and be their individual selves. But you know what? God provided many opportunities, Jeff, for me to spend time with each when they had issues that were totally different. Because they were different, they had different needs. Their characters were different. I knew that I could talk to Eric a little bit more, academically, if you will. Alex was more of a strong head, athletic jock. Joshua was trying to figure out how to fit in with the two because he loved his brothers, but they wouldn't let him in because they had that twin dynamics. And we knew that the whole time. We knew who had leadership skills. We knew who was going to catch on to something quicker, and we capitalized on those abilities and tackled each one separately. They didn't have separate rooms. The twins slept in one big room, and Joshua had his own room. So spending time with them was easy too, because I could go to Josh and be with him. And but how do you make all 3 feel special? It's a daily balance of not picking a favorite. Maria always said, who my favorite is? The one that's behaving right now. I mean, they'll remember that their whole lives, because we never picked. We never, even though they tried. Oh, you love him more than you love us, and we laughed and said, that's not true, and they know that to this day. Yeah. Just a clear example of that and how we figured out how to do that even to this day. The twins are 21, Joshua's 20. They're away at college. For Mother's Day, not all 3 came at once. But you would think that the mom would be upset about that. But she loves that. Eric came first. He was able to come because his work schedule, spend one-on-one time with her. and the three of us went out to dinner a couple times, and we saw him. He left. Joshua drove in, spent 3 days here, did the same thing with him, one-on-one. And at the end, Alex just left yesterday. So not only have we figured out how to give him individual love and value, but they've also figured out if I'm in the room with all five of us, I'm competing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find the time to just go alone. They do the same with their grandparents. They don't go to their grandparents with us. If they go to their grandparents with us, the conversation turns to Spanish, and they're a little bit left out. If we don't go, my grandparents will talk to them in English, and they have 100% of their time. So you figure it out on what works, because you're intentional about being with the family member one way or the other.
Yeah.
So you figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No.
I used to buy, when the boys were 4 or 5 years old, we bought them, this is the example I always use. I would buy them 3 Spider-Mans, the same exact toy. Identical, no different. Just give me 3 of those. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And for some reason, one of those toys became the focus of a fight, a Scrabble, a let's go break him up. You take Joshua. Guys, stop! Over one toy. The other 2 brand new ones are in the corner. It was the most incredible thing, man. They were always fighting, but fighting about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, we were in the car yesterday with Alex, and he goes, "Hold on, Dad, I gotta take this." Hey, bro, it's his twin, and I hear it on the speaker because we're driving. He's like, "I'm joining this boxing class. You want to join?" "Yeah, how much is it?" Such and such." "Okay. Yeah, I'd love to beat you." Well, he said something else, but I won't repeat it. He says, "Yeah, I'd love to beat you on the mat." "Yeah," and Eric laughed. "Oh. Okay, well, when you get back to San Marcos, we'll sign up." "Okay, yeah, save me a spot." They developed that chemistry, even though when they were little they fought. But I told Maria many times, let them fight. When I knew it was safe. Because at some point they gotta get that out, the testosterone.
Right.
They gotta get it out.
Yeah.
They gotta work through conflict. They gotta learn that not all humans get along 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And then they have to learn how to reconcile and still be brothers.
Yeah.
They've watched Maria and I dance, kiss, fight, argue, make up. We've made sure they see all of that interaction so that they learn, okay, you can still love someone and you can still argue and then forgive and reconcile and move on.
Yeah.
And they've watched 30 years of that, because we didn't have kids right away. They've watched 22 years of that. And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge for them. We never fight in front of the kids.
Yeah.
Be careful, because you don't want them to think, oh, my parents never fought. That's such a fallacy.
Right.
Marriage is hard, and people have to work out their differences. And I always told Maria when she was like, they're up there yelling, I said, let them work things out. They'll figure it out. I'll go up there if I hear a lamp is getting thrown across the room. But if it's just an argument where they have to establish their presence and their ideas, then let them do it.
I think you're allowing them to build capacity by letting go at some point. There's so many parents that it's so ironic. I just did a podcast about this recently about parents that are so helicopter parents or snowplow parents that pave the way for their kids that were in helping almost hinders to the point. So when they don't have the capacity to, when they have a disagreement down the road somewhere, when it really matters how to handle it, how to work through that. So I think that's great that as such those are teachable moments that are life lessons, and the transparency, knowing that you're going to come out of this on the other side, still loving each other. And how proud were you, Dad, when you were driving down the road listening to your 2 sons. I mean, because we don't we want our kids to love each other? I mean, I love it when my daughter and my son are sitting on the couch at home when we're at holidays or something, and you know, you just think.
And there are two adults talking.
We did it. You know, I'm going to high five my wife and say, you know, because they may not always have us, but they'll have each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important.
And for them to raise their families together too, and continue the building of a family, you know, and their children and their wives, and keep that up and not separate, you know, because then their children will see more of the family concept as they grow it themselves. So, I think that's important.
I think what you also said was, you know, when I was a principal, I always thought a great teacher is a teacher that finds out what's important to each one of their students. And you know, what you did is you described your three sons, their strengths, their qualities that they possess, and and that's again going back to that word that you used, being intentional. And you know, I think we have to. So what matters to them? What makes them tick? You know, what makes them different? You know, you have to take that initiative. You have to be present, and you have to contribute. I mean, how else do you know the leadership skills and the qualities of each one of your individual sons if you're not participating?
Unless you've been watching.
That's right. That's right. And a good teacher does that. And so a dad is a teacher. You know, and it's continuous education. You know, it's no matter how old we get, your parents are still alive.
Yep.
You still call your dad.
Oh.
I called my dad until he was 82 years old, and I was in my 50s. And we never stopped being the dad, you know, and they never stopped being our children, no matter how old they get.
I love to sit with my dad, and he doesn't smoke cigars all the time, but, you know, he drinks scotch. I like bourbon. We sit on the patio, and we start talking, and he's a great storyteller. And he should write a book. Mom and Dad should do a movie about Cuba before Castro or something. Because I just sit there and I'm like, oh my God, you know.
Well, your
film material, man.
Your story coming to America is a story, you know, that's just, and again, what a legacy for your boys, the strength of your family, and I think that's so important. And so how does mom play into all of this? You've alluded to Maria, you know, and what an amazing mom and partner.
I think the best gift I could give, and I one of the slides on my presentation at Dad U has this on it, which it's a pivotal point for me to talk about during the presentation. It says the biggest gift I can give my sons is to love their mother. So I think, you know, I have a friend who has boys and girls, and he always told me, you protect your daughters, you prepare your sons. And the boys will always have an affinity to their mom. They came from her. They go to her for comfort, nurturing. Mom is special always, right? They always tell the story of all the guys in prison who had a free Hallmark card that they could send to their mom, and the line was at the door at the unit. But when they did the same thing on Father's Day, nobody showed up, right? Yeah. They have a special connection to mom. It's inevitable. It's nature. But even then, if I believe if you don't have that example of loving and caring and treating your wife like a lady and showing, you know, that intimate moment where they catch us kissing and they go, ooh, but since they were little, they've been seeing that because we're very affectionate. So I think that prepares them for their wife, the mother of their children. You have to show them what it takes to treat a woman, you know. And mom loves that. She's the queen. She's surrounded by males, you know. Maria took the role of what I consider too much protecting. But now I look back and I go, you were right. Because when it came to being more careful on how they approached alcohol, being more careful as to what they watched on television early on, which eventually they went to a friend's house and watched it anyways, being incredibly, helicopter about porn, all that kind of stuff mostly came from her. And I almost kind of follow that lead because I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to, tell him, porn's no big deal if mom is doing that, And, like every man, I mean, I don't know how much we are say on this podcast, but, I struggle.
It's a struggle.
I was told once, 8 out of every 10 men struggle with porn. The other 2 are lying about it.
Yeah.
So I knew early on, and this is something that's been so powerful for me to realize. I knew early on that if I had been able to beat Satan with that, he was going to go after my sons. Because then he had a 33% chance of winning that battle then if he stopped bothering me and he went after them, and he did. And the wall that was there put up by God was Maria. And the fight started with her, and then I came in and supported her. Even though at first I thought I have no moral ground to support this because I'm guilty myself. But she stood firm, and hopefully we curbed that. I don't know. Hopefully, I know we have because we've had some pretty honest conversations, the boys and I, and they're fine. But there was a time in high school, and all it took, Jeff, was some tournament out somewhere between games, sitting out in the stands waiting for the next game, and for some kid to pull out their phone out of their backpack and go, "Hey guys."
Yeah.
And then that's it. That's it. The visual's there and it's done.
Yeah.
The damage is done.
Yeah.
So Satan's very smart, but God is smarter, and we won that battle. So Maria did a lot of that. That was her role, as well as the nurturing and the being home. We were blessed. We were lucky that I could work and she could say, she's a U of H grad. She has a college degree. She could have gone and worked. But we said, no, you do the harder part. You stay home. There's many times when she said, "You want me to go to the restaurant and cover for you?" And I would go, "No." This is really, really. I did it a few times, and it was hard. It was very hard to the homework and this and that, and they needed that safety to come home to and know that someone was home. But that was her role. Still continues to be. They worship her. They love their mom. They still call her, "Hi, mommy," and they're adults now, right?
That's.
And I told Eric the other day, if you ever call me and I hear "Hi, Daddy," I'm going to hang up on you. He started laughing because, "No, sir, that's never going to come out of my mouth." "Hi, Daddy," but mommy, yes. I think till they die, right?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And that does, I know that not all of our listeners are going to be, we've got a lot of men out there that are divorced, and we talk about that at Dad U. We talk, one of our presentations is divorced but devoted, and it's probably the unfortunately
which was packed,
the pact, and we would still be there right now if we had to move them. Because there are a lot of men out there that. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, marriage breaks up, but they don't want to. They still want to be involved in their kids, and God bless them for that. Because there are a lot of men that divorce their wife and then they divorce their kids too, and they walk. And that's why we're here today. It's a reason for Dad University and Up Ministry, and why there's such a crisis in our families. But we do know that 2 is better than 1.
Yeah,
the right 2. And if because you as iron sharpens iron with man, husband and wife, God had that master plan, that you balance each other, that structure, that consistency, and so forth, and those teachings. And I think that's so important. And it sounds like you and Maria have had a lot of communication in regards to raising and your boy. So
well, we always agreed. So behind closed doors, we had this conversation. We got to be on the same page. So before we went out there and faced them about any issue, we took it to the side and said, we can't go out there and you be saying one thing and me another. So let's get it out right here and discuss what's going to be said, because they have to see one message. And at the time, I was like, okay, yes, fine, I agree. But now I look back and I go, that's key. Because if there is confusion, okay, Dad's saying one thing, Mom's saying another, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
That's so dangerous. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know how hard it is to be a single parent. I pray for those men and women who are trying to do that.
Yeah.
Because the balance is definitely more impactful, I think. But you know what? I know a lot of single moms who have turned out some really great kids too.
Oh my gosh!
Single dads who are very involved, whose children are amazing human beings, and they actually said, I'm not going to let what happened to my parents happen to me, and I'm going to protect my marriage, and my kids are not going to go through that.
Right.
So there are some great stories out there. Not everything is about the marriage dissolved and the kids turned because I think a lot of families get it. I know a family actually, and you know who they are, but I've seen him in the restaurant with his kids, and they've been separated for a while. And it's 5 kids, and he always comes in, and I know the time of the week where it's his turn, and he brings them to the restaurant. And many years ago, I took a bold step and said to him, "Brother, I commend you for what you're doing." Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how it was going to backfire or not, because I didn't know him that well at the time. I know him better now. But the oldest son looked at him and said, "You see, Dad?" And that gave me chills, because, the dad's probably thinking, I don't know if this is working. And the oldest one is going, "We need you in our lives." Powerful stuff, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the 2 reasons why Up Ministries exists. Number one, to celebrate the dads that are already in the game. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful that you took. I don't think that's bold. I think that's just, sometimes who else is going to tell the dad that they're doing a good job? Mm-hmm. Nobody who walks up and says, "Thanks for being the dad."
Right.
And so when I have an opportunity, when I see it on Facebook, when I see it in the mall, when I see it somewhere where a kid is like, Dad's got kids crawling all over him, and you try to wrangle them in, and it's like, and Dad's being dad. I go, thank you for being the dad.
Yeah.
Because in society today, more than ever, we're deemed non-essential. Mm-hmm. The buffoons, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the other side of that coin is to exhort those men that are on the sidelines to get in the game, because we do have a lot of those dads that are, whether they're married or divorced, that just choose not to be a contributor and participate. Yeah. And so we've got to get, those are the guys we've got to wake up. We got to get them, or we've talked about the fact that our families are in crisis. Yeah. And so if we don't get a hold of the men to be the dads that God's called them to be. So you talk also about finding the right partners or mentors for your sons. So talk a little bit about that. What is that?
So I knew early on that the task was too big for just me to impress these guys, okay? And I knew that I had to find some people. It takes a village to raise a child, that old saying. Well, it takes a village of dads to help you, especially if you have multiple boys like I did. So having all that testosterone and be able to funnel it, I knew I needed examples, because I know what my dad was to me as an example. And I can set an example for all three, but they have different lives and they go in different directions, and I'm not always there. Present during their high school hours, present during their sleepovers at somebody else's. There's so many times we just can't be next to them.
Right.
So I thought I need to make sure that I surround my boys with men that think like me, or at least that I perceive that they're godly men. Guys who are using their testosterone properly, so they understand what that is. It's an example, man. It really is. I always remember somebody told me once, your kids, when they grow up, will follow your example more than they'll listen to your advice. So I can sit there and counsel them all day long and say all kinds of really good stuff, but until they watch me and go, yeah, dad puts his money where his mouth is, they're never going to do it. So, there are many people, yourself included, that I'm very thankful that they were in their lives. Their coaches, guys at church, other dads from friends that they had. Because, without being too selective, we were on the friends and families we let them spend time with. There were sleepovers that we said never again, for a variety of reasons. Right. There were sleepovers where I knew, okay, this is a good place for them to get up in the morning. Parents are cooking breakfast. I know this guy. He's cool. He's godly. He's not going to do anything silly in front of them. And the example is going to be continued even if I'm not there. Yeah. So, coaches, other men. Look, I texted the boys a couple of days ago about, VCL. They still know what that stands for. Eric said something that was interesting. He said, I appreciated the encouragement, although I didn't really need it, which made me feel good. But I know a lot of kids who did, whether they were timid or they didn't have a father at home. I mean, I can read you the text, man. He went through and he listed all these reasons and said, but what I do appreciate about Jeff was the fact that he listened and what we thought mattered. So you said that earlier, and I almost brought it up, but this is a better time for that. You were there to listen, and that's something that that's a key quality in a dad. So again, an example of another mentor, another man in their lives. There were guys at church that I know that they were around. They're youth leaders. People that I knew I could count on to continue if I wasn't there, to continue showing them what a male should act like. So you need help. You need other guys. You need to recruit them, and not actively like say, I'm hiring you to be a mentor, but just be selective. Yeah. Be selective. I always, because I love sports so much, I try to be involved in coaching, whether it was, do you want me to be an assistant and sit at the end and write down stats? I hate keeping the books and writing statistics, but I did it because I got to sit at the end of the bench, watch the head coach in action, and be there to support the boys if they were taken out of the game and their head was hanging, and I could slide over a few chairs and go, hey, it's all right, man. Yeah. You did this and this and this right. And when he puts you back in, do this and this and this. But again, the head coach was important for me that we had him with the right person. I can tell you a couple of teams where we pulled him out and said, no, I don't think so. Yeah. It's not good for his development. And it wasn't just about playing time. It was about a lot of stuff that I saw that I was like, no, that's not for him.
Yeah. I think it makes me, I get almost emotional when I think about the men that have been in my kids' lives. All the way from, their Sunday school teachers when they were little, men, all the way up to youth pastors and coaches, as you mentioned, that are so influential, and teachers and I remember a 5th grade math teacher that changed my daughter's life in the way that she thought she was. She wasn't, she didn't think she was very good at math, or she didn't really like math, and not that my daughter was a mathematician ever, but he made her feel like she was smart and could do it, and she did. It was amazing, Never forget that. I'll never forget the many coaches that developed my son, and he gave him opportunity.
I'll give you an example of Joshua shot up from 6'2" to 6'7" in no time at all. But he had quit basketball already. There was one summer he didn't even play club ball. He said, "I'm done, Dad." I said, "Oh, that's unfortunate because I could see the potential." Come August, he's getting up at 6 in the morning. Jackson Moffitt is picking him up, and they're going to the gym to shoot. And I was like, "Hey, what's going on? Why do you have this new love for the game?" He goes, "Well, my coach just told me that I have potential and I can be real good." I'm like, and I just swallowed it and said, he didn't, I've been saying that for 17 years.
Yeah.
But as long as he heard it, and someone
That's
took
right.
that role
That's
and
right.
it sunk in,
That's right.
that's what matters.
That's right.
And then the rest is history. I mean, his high school career took off, and he had a great high school career.
Yeah.
So, you need examples. You need other people to help you. You just can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And God provides that. And if you pray for the right mentors to be around, God will bring them. So prayer is important because you have to let God know, God, please, show me who can help with this.
Yeah.
Again, that communication,
Yeah. Well, like we started off, I was, imagining those men that will be listening to this podcast. And so for all those young dads out there, and even, dads at all different life stages that particularly are raising boys, whether they need reconciliation or whether they're been there, done that dads, or whether they're brand new dads, what in general would be your advice to dads in raising boys? Just what would be that last word that you would say to summarize what we've talked about today?
So I envisioned that what Maria and I did was build a little ship, build 3 of them, and walk to the shore when they turned 18. And we can see the lightning out there, and we can see the storm brewing, and we can see the waves picking up. And we put them all in the boat and said, head to the storm. And we watched them right in until we could see them no longer. And then the lightning started, and the rain came down, and the waves got big, and we thought, God, you have them now. So the quality and the integrity of that boat is what I trust to keep them safe, as well as their knowledge of how to navigate it and get out of the storm. With that, I'm trying to say, Jeff, that I think the biggest thing that dads can do is make sure. Nothing will give me more joy than to know that my sons seek God's counsel when they get older, because they're going to continue to be attacked, especially with what I said earlier about Satan attacking them because he can't get to me. So knowing that they have the ability to turn to God and seek Him and walk in that truth, it's the main goal and the one rewarding thing that I could say, okay. You were talking earlier about high-fiving your wife because your kids. That's when I'm going to high-five Maria, when I know that they are seeking the truth. And the advice I could say is turn them in that direction constantly, because the only thing that matters, I don't really care if Eric turns out to be a CEO of a company, or if Alex becomes an entrepreneur, or if Joshua becomes an NBA player. Good for them if they do. But what really will matter to me is if they're in their 30s, they have a family, and God is ruling their homes. Because Maria and I had a very rocky marriage our first 18 months, 2 years. And we didn't have God in our lives. And when we put it back together 2 years later, in 1996, God was in my life heavily, and she was coming around and curious what was going on with me, and that's what made it work. So it makes sense to me that the only way that these guys are going to succeed is if they have God in their lives. For everything, for career, for marriage, for raising their own kids. So I would say that that's the main goal for any dad. Make sure God is in their lives at some point. Don't I mean, can you make sure that they got out of high school? Sure. Can you encourage them to get a college degree? Okay. But none of that matters if God's not in their life.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if that's...
No, I think that's great.
The goal that you were looking for.
Yeah. I think that's the foundational. I think sometimes we look, like you said, we look for and the foundation is, like you said, everything is amplified by our relationship with Christ. Yeah. And I think that's the boat that you build for them to sail into that storm, it gets its strength, through what you convey, what you model, what you say. All those years are in that boat, And
you got to teach them how to swim back to it.
Yeah.
If they get knocked out by a big wave.
Yeah.
And get back on the boat. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I tell people all the time that one of my favorite stories in the Bible is the prodigal son, because I'm that person sometimes daily. But the difference is...
Which one? The son?
The son, because I know where to come... Well, I'm both, I want to... And I love the father. I love the story.
Because that story is about the dad. You know that, right?
Well, but I'm the one that goes away, but I know where to come home. And there's a lot of people that don't know where to come home.
Yeah.
Like you said, get back in the boat.
Yeah.
And because we know that there's going to be that dad, that heavenly dad, is going to not just stay on the porch. He's going to run to us. He runs to us.
And embrace you and say, welcome home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is the character of God.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand how to be a parent. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't understand God's character better until I became a parent. You don't know. Yeah. And then you become a parent, and all of a sudden, you know of God, and you know Him, and you've gone to church your whole life and all that. But until you have kids, for me anyways, my personal experience, for me, when my children were born and I saw and felt and experienced everything they were going through, I said, oh, that's what God feels when I turn my back on Him. That's what it's like for God to keep forgiving me even though I mess up. Because my sons will always get my forgiveness. My sons will always be loved. My sons will always be embraced if they leave and come home. My sons, you know what I mean? And that's the same thing. So his character became more clear as I'm being now the dad.
Yeah.
And that's been powerful for me.
Yeah. Well, Ulises, I want to thank you, as we talk about in Dad University, for being that daily, active, devoted dad that God has called you to be, and that the husband that you are and the man that you are. And I want to thank you for being on Dad University again and being a part of this, because
it's an honor.
Yeah. I love you, brother.
It's an honor, and I hope that we get to keep this going for all the dads that still need it, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bless you, brother.
Thank you.